All right, I want to continue talking about this idea of letting go of the doctrines of the past. Because one of the things you've got to understand is you can't mix truth with error. Because if you look at your heart is either going to be moving towards God and what He thinks and what He says is going to be moving towards the flesh. And when we look around us, all the stimulus that we have is for the flesh. I mean, and the flesh, it's like a drug. The flesh demands to do something. You know, it's so difficult for us to just rest and wait on God. It's so difficult to us just to be at peace. You know, because we're so used to having to earn something. You know, think back at your Christian life. How much of your Christian life was you doing stuff? You know, whether it was giving or working or, you know, and of course what happens is once you understand the freedom of it, it's hard to get someone to do something until they understand who they are. See, the first step is understanding what you're not. It's not about us. It's not about our performance. And then we move to, well, if that's not what we're supposed to do, what are we supposed to do? And our actions come out of our love. It's a response to God's love to us. We do what we do. Why do we give? We don't give because if I give, God is obligated to give me 10, you know, what is it, 30, 40, 100-fold return. It's not that at all. It's got nothing to do with what I give. The only people that are benefited in the word of faith is the leaders of the churches. You know, like, let me be honest with you, as I was coming up in ministry and being involved in the fivefold ministry, I was told, you know, the senior pastor took a massive wage. The 2IC had to learn by faith. In other words, he sent his wife out to work, or they received the dole, lived off the government because the church wouldn't give them enough to live. Now that's an abomination towards the Lord. Now I'm not against people receiving large sums of money. Money is not anything really. Yes, we need it for this life, but it's not to be our master, it's to be our servant, our slave. And so for me, money really is nothing. It's just something that serves me. And God will give me everything I need for life and godliness. I'm never going to lack. And when I understand I have no lack, I'm generous in what I do. I'm generous in what I give. Not because I'm looking to get something. I'm doing it because I have everything. It's a totally different position. But see, what happens is that we've had this position in the church where we have to give, we have to tithe, we have to do this. And I understand why, because the church has to survive. You know, you have to pay your electricity bill, you have to pay your rent, your rates and taxes, all those things must be paid. And it's easier, instead of trusting God for it, to manipulate the people and get it. And that's what often happens. It's not because they don't love the people, it's because they're desperate. And we all get desperate at times. But the thing is, we need to focus on God's goodness to us. We have been made righteous. We have everything we need for life and godliness within us. And what we need to do is submit ourselves to the Holy Spirit and allow the Holy Spirit access to change our heart. He can't do it on his own, but He wants to work with us. And we need to take the out of the driver's seat and let the Holy Spirit take the driver's seat, and we be the wingman. We do what we need to do to let Him do what only He can do. And that's the key. And see, do I give? Absolutely. Am I generous? Absolutely. Am I paying my tithe? No. Why? Because the tithe, by its very teaching, has defined obligation. It's defined me doing something and getting something in return. And you know what that's called? The flesh. Yeah. I'm not even going to talk about anything. That's the flesh. If I think by my performance, by doing anything, I get something from God, I'm under legalism and under a curse. Sure. That's the simple point. I don't do what I do because of obligation. I do what I do because I'm free to do it. And the only way you can be free to give is if you know the truth of abundance. The abundance isn't out there. The abundance is within you. You create what you need from within. And that's the beauty of it. Where is your answer? It's within you. Oh, I'm in such a hole, I don't know whether God's big enough to give me the answer. You'll create your answer. And that's why it doesn't matter where we live, doesn't matter the economic situation, doesn't matter what our job is. Our answers come from within. We create them from the spiritual to the natural, and we create something that never was, and it becomes a part of. I'm talking in the natural sense here. Because we know from Hebrews that everything that in the natural world has come from the spiritual and is controlled by the spiritual. And that's the point. So look, if we are not careful, even the terminology we use is going to cause us to stumble and get back to the flesh. Listen, the flesh is vigorous to want to take control, and we need to work vigorously not to allow it to. We need to consciously guard what we hear, consciously guard what we allow into our heart. Why? Because, listen, we've got enough of the flesh in there. We need more of the Spirit because we need to let out what's on the inside. And that only happens when the heart believes it and changes, lets it out. And so that's the key. That's what it's all about. And the problem with people that have one foot in the word of faith camp and one foot in the grace camp is they get nothing. James talks about those people, says they're a double-minded man, unstable in all their ways, and they should not expect to get anything from the Lord. What did they say? No answers, no manifestation, nothing that you need will be manifested. Why? Because your heart is not going to be able to let anything out. And so the key thing is this, is not about, oh, well, I'm balanced, I've got a bit of this and a bit of that. No, I'm lost in God. It's all God and none of me. The only thing that I need to do is to believe what God says about me. And then work with Him to allow me to do what only He can do. Why? Because it's a partnership. I've got to will to let Him do it, and there are things that I must do. I've got to speak out of my mouth. I've got to do some things that He wants me to do. He gives me what to say, I speak it, He creates a spiritual seed, and it's planted in my heart. Is it me changing my heart? No. It's the work of the Holy Spirit. All I'm doing is that simple thing that allows Him to do what only He can do. So that's the key. That's what it's all about. So when you really get into this, you start to really hate the message of the flesh. Why? Because you see that if you don't abandon it, you get nothing. You get absolutely nothing. Because the only way we have anything is if a heart lets it out. It's released from us. Because there's nothing out there to have. Go back to the garden. Eve had absolutely everything given to her by God. But she felt that she was in lack. And she went out through her effort and got something. And it brought death, separation from God forever. And that's the same with you and I. If we receive anything, it won't be from God. Why would we want that? Better to work with Him so that we can release what He's already given us. Because we got everything. Got the whole box and dice. Everything we need for life and godliness. So let's let it out. That's what our life's meant to be. We're meant to be living examples of the goodness of God. Don't you want that? That's what I want. And it's found by focusing on His goodness towards us, whom He's made righteous. And allowing Him to do what only He can do. Working with Him. Not us driving it, but He driving it, and us doing what little we need to do to let Him do what only He can do. Bless you.